Hey you guys, it's Victoria. So today, as you can tell by the title, I am doing a video on, is the sun healing or damaging? There's so many, in my opinion, myths going on, and I really want to delve into that. And what better time than this, the beginning of summer, to start talking about the sun and sunscreen and everything like that. So let's go. If you can't tell, back here is a picture of Dan that I framed, and that's actually a little screenshot of the first Dan video that I ever saw and what inspired me to go raw. So I have that framed, and I also have an iridology chart. If you haven't seen my video on iridology, please check that out. And I might even do another video sometime on iridology because it is so fascinating to me. But anyway, I digress. So on to the sun and sunscreen. So first I want to start off by talking about sunscreen. Everyone and their mother is addicted to sunscreen these days, and it's been going on for years and years. And I see it all the time. All you have to do is walk into a drugstore, grocery store, Target, anywhere, and you see this huge aisle of sunscreen, along with a huge aisle of synthetic vitamins, protein powders, etc. But there's always a huge aisle of sunscreen. I'm not sure if people stop and think about what they're slathering on their body every day. And this can also, under the umbrella of toxic personal care products, sunscreen's one of them, but you know, what lotion are you using, body wash, shampoo, especially with shampoo, that really creeps me out. What are you rubbing directly into your brain? But anyway, I also have a video on toxic personal care products, so check that out. Yeah, so I'm not sure if people really realize how toxic the ingredients in their sunscreen is and what sunscreen really does. Just a side note, just the perfume enough in sunscreen is enough to knock me out. I was at the pool the other day and there was a lady all the way across from me and she was slathering on typical sunscreen and I could smell it from across the pool. And I have noticed that since I have gone raw, my senses have just gone up, especially my sense of smell. The slightest thing, I can either love it or I really, really hate it and it bugs me. So that's really interesting. I'm just so sensitive to smells now, and it makes me really wonder, you know, most people around us that are asleep, that's what I like to say. There's a lot of people that are asleep, you guys. They're awake, but they're asleep. And they can just put on loads of chemical fragrances and perfumes and not be affected at all whatsoever. I actually used to be one of those people, you know. I wore synthetic perfumes and body washes and I got into all that stuff, but now it makes me want to throw up, you know. All of those made in a lab synthetic perfumes and fragrances, just they absolutely do nothing for me now, and they also can make me, you know, get sick, have a headache. So it really makes you wonder how people can use those things and not be affected. So the fragrance in sunscreen enough is really gross, in my opinion. But there's also loads of other toxic chemicals besides fragrance. And just as a side note, every product that you see fragrance in, the FDA does not make the company regulate, and they don't have to list what is in that actual fragrance. The fragrance itself could have 50 ingredients in it. They don't have to say what's in it. So oftentimes the fragrance and whatever you're buying is really, really toxic. But aside from that, there's other loads of chemicals in sunscreens. Okay, so when you go out in the sun, you're basically baking these into your skin. You're basically inviting it. It's like going into an oven and making them really penetrate your skin. Especially these waterproof sunscreens. They just give me chills. The nanoparticles essentially just penetrate the skin, and especially the waterproof types, and create an even more carcinogenic situation for you. So stay away from sunscreens, and especially the waterproof sunscreens. I personally would never want to slather on chemicals all over my body and then go out and bake in the sun, like I said. That just doesn't make sense to me, and I just would never do it. But one of the worst sunscreen ingredients right now is called oxybenzone, and it's actually one of the main ingredients right now, one of the main active ingredients in sunscreen. It's actually not carcinogenic until you go out in the sun. So I don't know who thinks of these things. I'm not sure if the sunscreen companies give a hoot because it's all about the bottom line, right? Even with all these food companies and the pharmaceutical industry, it's all about the money. Oxybenzone is one of the most toxic ingredients in the sunscreens right now. It's just really, really icky once you start researching and realizing what is in sunscreen. But, you know, aside from all of the toxic ingredients, that's pretty much a given. Once you have been given the knowledge of that, to me, it's common sense. And you're just like, oh yeah, I don't want to put that on my body. Same thing with, you know, conventional lotions and stuff right now on the market. You just don't want to put those chemicals in your body because whatever you put on your body, you might as well take the pump and squirt it into your mouth and eat it because it soaks in, it goes into your body, it goes into the blood system, the liver has to process it, etc., etc. And they also get stored in the lipid layers of your skin. So it's just really be cautious about what you put on your skin, you guys, and what you inhale and your fragrances, etc. I could go on and on about this if you couldn't tell. So sunscreen is seen in the society as anti-aging, and I'm gonna go on another Victoria tangent right now, but I actually went to a dermatologist whenever I was in high school because I was suffering from skin conditions, as I've talked about many times before in my videos. That's what led me to raw foods. And so of course the dermatologist put me on antibiotics, which we all know compounds the problem, doesn't fix anything. It's like putting a Band-Aid and not going to the real root cause. And actually it just hurts you about 50 times more taking antibiotics. The dermatologist actually was gonna almost put me on Accutane, but even then I had my inner voice scream out to me and say, Victoria, do not take Accutane, because that is one of the most toxic things in the world, and it breaks my heart every time I hear people say that they've taken Accutane, because I know a lot of people in my past who have taken that, and it's so sad. They actually found Accutane when they were researching for a cancer drug, and they found that it was so powerful that it somehow helped clear the skin. So they started peddling it as an acne medicine, and it is just so sad. I would definitely advise to never take Accutane, and if you have taken it, please get on the detox train. Please detox your whole body from head to toe, because whew, it just gives me chills about that. But anyway, I remember seeing posters all over the dermatologist's office about how bad the sun is and just, you know, stay away from it. And I wonder how her vitamin D levels were. Anyway, so that was my Victoria tangent. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty with this. So what sunscreens do essentially is they stop you from getting a sunburn, and they do this by blocking the UVB rays, and it's the UVB rays that create sunburns. So the sunscreens block the UVB rays, and so what ends up happening is the skin absorbs the horrible toxic ingredients from the sunscreen, and then it blocks the UVB rays. So what this does is it stops your skin's ability to scream out at you and say, okay, I've had too much sun, I'm starting to burn, go get in the shade and get out of the sun. That's just a natural mechanism that our body possesses. You know, when you get a sunburn, it's your body's way of communicating with you to get out of the sun. But when you put on sunscreen, it blocks your body from being able to tell you that. And if that wasn't enough, what it does is it makes it to where you get all of these isolated UVA rays. So when our body gets these isolated forms of UVA rays, then your rates of skin damage actually go up. So it's really funny. It just doesn't make sense. But what I want you to take away from this, if you take away anything about this topic of sunscreen, is sunscreen blocks the body's ability to absorb vitamin D. That's a big deal. Your body needs vitamin D, and when you put on sunscreen, you're blocking your ability to absorb it. So it is just horrible. So please stay away from the sunscreen. Let me just say that I understand and I fully realize that too much sun giving you a sunburn is not a good thing, and repeated exposure in the same area where you get a sunburn in the same area over and over, that's not a good thing. That does create skin damage, but being out in the sun is not bad. It's a natural thing that God created, and no one is gonna tell me that the sun is not good for you. I feel like that I thrive in the sun. When I go out in the sun, it just feels so good basking in it. And like I said, yes, going past the point of no return and getting a sunburn is not good, but going out in the sun and getting your vitamin D is wonderful and the body loves it. And I do have some evidence to support that. So there's pretty much a bunch of hyped up subjects in our culture today. And one of them is that the sun is bad for you. You know, we're all taught to stay away from the sun and, you know, wear a hat and get out of it for too long. But despite all of that hype, should we really stay out of the sun and, you know, never go out and bask in its rays and all of its glory? I have a really good relationship with the sun. I just love it. I always have. I feel so good after I'm out in the sun for a period of time. You know, your mood can go up and I just love it. So should we really stay out of the sun all the time? Well, studies have shown that those with the highest rates of malignant melanoma, which is the most dangerous of all the skin cancers, it's actually the cancer of the pigment cells in the skin. So studies have shown that those with the highest rates of malignant melanoma are those with the lowest overall rates of sun exposure, solar exposure. And so that's pretty funny, isn't it? Also, the spots that oftentimes people have these skin cancers in are in areas where they didn't get that much sun exposure. So other studies have shown that the rates of adults and children with the highest rates of these skin cancers spent the least time outdoors. Also, those who live closer to the equator had the least rates of these skin cancers. So there's a book written by Bernard Ackerman, and he was a medical doctor, and he wrote this book called The Sun and the Epidemic of Melanoma, Myth on Myth. And in his book, he said that there's actually no proof at all that melanoma is related to sun exposure. And it really makes sense when you start to think about how toxic people are on the inside and then they go out and bake in the sun and what can happen, what can be an effect from that, because everything has a cause and effect. And actually these increases of these skin cancers go up with what? The use of these horrible toxic sunscreens. And you know, now we basically live in a world where people are bound to their offices all day, indoors, under ultraviolet lights, and they just stare at computer screens all day. They don't ever go outside and enjoy nature, breathe in the fresh air, and get some sun. So all of this is so interesting. When I started researching this, and you know, I love saying this, but another light bulb went on for me and it really just innately made sense. So I really wanted to share with you this little piece of history. And so I have notes on this that I typed out because I really didn't want to miss anything. So if you see me looking down periodically through this video, it's because I'm looking at my notes on this. So let's go back to the turn of the century, the late 1800s. And there were epidemics of rickets and tuberculosis, the White Plague, going on. And it's just like the epidemic of what we have today, cancer, heart disease. All of these diseases back then were killing people by the thousands, the hundreds of thousands, just like cancer and everything is killing us today. So that's what they were facing back then. And luckily, there was a Danish doctor named Neil Finsen, Neilfinsen. And like I said, he was a Danish doctor, and he was actually awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for coming up with the cure for tuberculosis through his heliotherapy, or what? Sun therapy. So it was just amazing. Then following in his footsteps was a doctor named August Rollier, Augustroller. And around the time period of 1923, in his peak, he had about 36 clinics in the Swiss Alps, and they were these light therapy, these sun therapy places you could go. And I'm going to insert pictures all throughout this video relating to whatever I'm talking about. So I really want to give you guys visuals on this, because when I saw these pictures, they just blew me away, and they made me wish that there were places like this today that I really truly believe could help people. you just saw these pictures, and don't you wish we had hospitals like that today, where the windows were open, there was fresh air blowing in, and people got sun? You know, I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but hospitals are a place today that I would personally never want to go into unless it was a dire, dire emergency. And that is because they are the most sterile places on earth, with the overuse of antibiotics and sterilizing everything. And you know, their overuse of antibiotics and sterilization is contributing to these massive increases of antibiotic resistant infections like MRSA. Our modern hospitals are just, people don't go there to be healed. You guys, let's get real. People don't come out vibrant and healthy and happy and healed from these hospitals. They're loaded with antibiotics, prescription medicines, unnecessary surgeries, treatments. You know, you go into a hospital for a treatment, and aside from all that, they also feed you hospital food, which we know is not high vibrancy foods. They're not feeding everyone juices and raw foods in hospitals. They're feeding chicken fried steak and Jell-O, you know, for example. Canned corn. You know, people don't go in there to get vibrant and healed. They go in there because they did not get on the preventative parade to healing. I need to coin that term, the preventative parade. You know, not to make light of that situation, but I really wish hospitals could just change today, and using sun therapy could be one of the new modern modalities that could come. And anyway, that's a dream of mine. So Dr. Rollier, with his sun therapy, actually healed rickets, tuberculosis, wounds on the skin, etc. at his clinics, and his cures made headlines at the time, and it was just miraculous because he was healing tuberculosis. He found that the best results came from eating nutritious food, I don't question that, and sunning in the morning, getting most of the sun in the morning. And he found that people that had nourished skin from eating healthy diets reacted to the sun better than those who didn't. So at his clinics, the patients would eat healthy meals and get their sunlight. Really, really simple, right? Like I've said in past videos, I really love simplistic ideology, and how much more simple can it get than that, you know? Eating healthy and getting sunlight and allowing your body to heal fully. This all leads me to this question. Could this sun therapy work today in a society where everyone, almost everyone, is toxic on the inside? People are walking around today thinking they're healthy, but they're not. The inside, if you could cut open their body and look at it and see the toxins and see, you know, how stressed and taxed their internal organs are. Could this sun therapy work today? And I say that because the sun in its nature is acidic. It's not alkaline, it's acidic. So when you go out in the sun, especially for long periods of time, and on the inside you are acidic and toxic and not healthy, it can really exacerbate things and make you a little bit worse, in my opinion. You know, have you ever gone out in the sun and gotten a headache and gotten a little bit sick from it? Well, could you have asked yourself, am I healthy on the inside? You know, it's just really interesting. That makes me wonder if this could work today, because we are almost past a point of no return right now. You know, people are walking around in a state of sickness and they don't even know it. So it's really sad, but I wish that, like I said, hospitals and clinics and places everywhere could stop the sabotage with the prescription drugs that don't heal anything. There's not a pill anywhere, you guys, that can heal anything. You have to get out of your body's way and let it heal, and by doing that, you detoxify. Anyway, I wish more places today could take up these modalities of healing and see what it can really do. It'd be wonderful, right? I can dream. But unfortunately, these diseases of the darkness are still happening today. You know, people still have rickets and osteoporosis and arthritis. People are not getting the sun exposure they need because it's mainstream ideology right now to not want to go out in the sun, you know? Put sunscreen on, hardly go out in the sun at all, sit in the shade. You know, that's modern thinking right now. So we live in a society that's basically afraid of the sun. Also, in late winter months, where people are living in climates where they have long winters, that's when the rates of cavities increase, the rates of flus, the rates of things like cancer increase. And that's because your vitamin D levels go down after a long winter of not being able to be out in the sun. So my advice would be to not go to the dentist in like March. Wait until probably September after you've had a full summer of vitamin D, you know, from being out in the sun. You know, things can heal after you get adequate amounts of vitamin D and you fill up your vitamin D reserves. But a moral to the story is to definitely not wear sunscreen and don't be afraid of the sun, you guys. The sun is healing, in my opinion. It can absolutely be healing, and we have seen examples of this in past history where people did heal themselves with the sun and eating healthy. I always recommend a healthy raw food diet, and if you're not 100% raw, because it can take time for people to lead up to that, for me it happened overnight because I feel that this is my absolute calling. But if you're not 100% raw right now, at least increase your intake of raw, organic, fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, it's pretty easy to do that. Take out your processed food and replace it with a raw fruits or vegetable. You know, eat a fruit meal in the morning. Just get your healthy foods, you guys. Get a little sun this summer. So thank you guys so much for watching and for subscribing. I love it. And commenting. I love giving you guys information that you guys want. So thanks again, and I will see you soon. Bye.